Greetings. I am Don Eduardo Ramon de las Casas. I am a Conquistador. And I want you to join us in a journey through time, across thousands of miles and hundreds of years, to Mundos Novos, the New World. These are the lands of New Spain, La Florida, Hispaniola, Cuba. Join us, my company, as we see new exotic lands with new exotic people, strange new species of animals and plants, tales of cities of gold. This was a time of great adventure, of exploration, and yes, conquest. Join my company and hear their tales of what challenges awaited them in the new world. My first guest is our navigator, Antonio de Avenus.
Thank you, Don Eduardo. Hello. I represent the navigator for one of the expeditions, also known as the piloto or pilot. And my purpose on board the ship was to make sure that the expeditions were able to get from the old world to the new, without running aground, avoiding storms, and making it in one piece to the new world. The tools that we used, most importantly, of course, were maps, such as these. Our job was to not only use existing maps, but to make corrections to them, produce new maps, and record all of the details for the expeditions. All of the details of each expedition was kept secret from any other nation but Spain. It was brought back for the king and queen to expand their empire. The ships used a magnetic compass, a new piece of scientific technology. It was considered magic by most. Most of the ordinary crew on the ships held it in high regard, as most did. Its magic of being able to point, and its use in creating a use of cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, for navigating. Usually they brought 3 or 4 compasses in case one malfunctioned. They also brought a magic stone known as lodestone, which was used to magnetize the metallic compasses. Using charts to navigate, they used dividers. This is a pair of brass dividers. These were used to scale the maps, to measure distances. They used quill pens. The pilot and the captain on board the vessels were several of the only people on the expeditions that were able to read and write. So oftentimes they were charged with recording the details of these expeditions. Most importantly, the ships navigated, of course, by the stars, the North Star being one of the most important, and also by the sun. This is one of the more advanced pieces of technology besides the compass. This is called an astrolabe, and this is a small portable version. It's essentially a pocket computer. You can use it to ascertain the time, to calculate distances, figure your latitudes, sort of an all-in-one tool. And on this side, on the face here, you have all of the different celestial bodies. And this can be held up at night and aligned with the celestial bodies. The plate can be rotated to the time of year and the celestial body. The pointer can be turned, and the degrees can be read off to calculate latitude. On the other face is a solar pointer. This would be aimed at the sun. Usually the measurements were taken at midday or noontime when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. Several of these measurements would be taken and an average recorded. And again, the pointer would be rotated. There's 2 holes, one on the top and one on the lower pointer. it would cast a shadow down on the bottom. When the shadow is aligned, the degrees would be read off. They also used a lead weight on board the ship, which would be thrown over the side at various times, connected to a long piece of rope. Along the sections of rope were pieces of rag that were dyed different colors. That was to measure depth. You always wanted to make sure that there was a sufficient amount of water under your vessel. You didn't want to run aground on a reef, on a sandbar, become lodged at low tide in an area that was susceptible to tidal floodings. That was a sounding weight. The bottom of it often was packed with tallow or wax, and when it was thrown off the ship and it reached the bottom, it would be hauled up again, and the wax would be investigated to see what was clinging to the bottom of it, whether it was shell, which usually meant shallow water, or a reef, white sand, which would be moderate depth. If it was a black soil or a slime, that was usually deep water, in excess of 100 feet or more. And that would be charged, a crewman would be charged with doing that under the supervision of the pilot. Also, on the ship to calculate speed, they used what was known as a chip log. It was a plank of wood that was attached through a knotted rope. This would be, the plank of wood would be clipped onto the end of this, and it would be allowed to unreel off the ship. And as it unreeled, a certain amount of knots would unroll on the rope. This was all timed with the aid of a sand glass, a 28-second sand glass. So this would be turned over, the piece of wood would be tossed off the edge of the ship, and it would pay out. After the 28 seconds were up, the crewman would shout time, the sand glass would be stopped, and the rope would be hauled in. As the rope was hauled in, the knots were counted that had paid out in the 28 seconds, and that gave you your speed. That's why today we use knots to calculate air and water speeds. Those are some of the basic tools that were used to navigate the vessels. Most of the expedition commanders, the captains of the vessels, and the pilots basically relied on sheer luck rather than science to get them to the New World. Yes. One other tool, which I almost forgot to mention. There's a small ring on my necklace here. The pilot's job was also to calculate time on board the vessel and keep a standard of it. This is a small sundial that would be used. It has an outer ring and an inner ring. There's a small hole on one end of the rings, and as you rotate it, it has the different months of the year. So you would rotate the dot to the month of the year, and then you would aim it at the sun, and the sun would shine through the hole and cast a shadow. On the inside of the ring are numbers, and those correspond to the hours of the day. So those are, again, the basic tools of the navigator in the 16th century. Next up,